Hello, hello. Hey, shorties, how you going? Oh my God, just gonna say that this not mirror camera fucks with me so hard. My left-handed autistic female brain struggles with direction at the best of times. So, when I have to have it like everything's mirrored, I am the Sally Port, but I'm not because it's like this. But it's not a mirror because if it was a mirror, this would be backwards. Ugh, my brain. Can you hear me? Tell me you can. Let me just check the audio's boosted right up. Yep, it is. So, welcome, shorties. Thank you so much for coming. Let me just get my chat up. How about yesterday, huh? I see that Lily is in the chat. Thank you for being here, Lily, and thank you for yesterday. That was amazing. Here we go. We're live and we're on the screen here, so now I can chat with you guys here. Cool. So today we're back to Let's Talk. Here we are, Let's Talking. And this one's on homelessness. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you, Ernie. Hi, Melly. Hi, Nick. Hi, LJ. Who else we got? Mona, welcome. Sarah, Candy, Kat, she's there. We got all my friends. Thank you so much for coming in today. I love it. Oh, Frank's here. Hey, Frank, my mate. Something exciting happening next weekend with Frank and his brother Jim. A little teaser, but I'll fill you in. I'll fill you in later. What we're here for today is hang on, wait. Let me just do my official shit. Sorry. You know, I'm a professional. Ay. Yes, I am. Oh my God, what am I doing? Yikes, Lisa, did you get this organized beforehand? No. Should you have? Yes. Okay, see, I've got this. I'm a fucking star, mate. All right, so let's talk today about homelessness. I think it's one of those amazing areas of conversation in society that people don't find so amazing. They find it rather confronting and quite terrifying, I think, which is understandable because it is terrifying. It's hard to have empathy for someone who doesn't have a home, because what are the things in our Western society that people, I guess, take for granted? Having a home, somewhere to live, a roof over your head, a support network, and housing stability. But that's not really, I'll get to that later, actually. That's not really so for everybody. So everybody has a house mostly, and they don't like to think about the people that don't have a house. So I've been homeless. I was homeless for just over 12 months, from the end of 2019 to the about 13-14 months through the peak of COVID, and I was living in my car. I had a storage unit that was sorry, off topic. I've just realized, lol, that I didn't put my eyebrow pencil on my brows. So sorry, guys. I'm looking a bit like, yikes. Anyway, that's okay. So I had a storage unit. I had 2 cats and 1 little dog. My 2 cats, Peter and Philip, lived in the storage unit. All my belongings were there, and I lived in my car. My little dog was with me at night. And we, thanks, Jen. No eyebrows. Oh, I can't. I'm so distracted. Never mind. Vanity's a curse. So I was feeling so proud because I was here already on time. No shit, mate. You didn't do your fucking eyebrows. Anyway, so what happened was I wasn't working. I was I hadn't been working in a traditional paid job in the traditional workforce for a few years. Let's just say, well, we've already talked about it. So I had been a sex worker, an escort, which for you US people, in Australia, it is legal. It's not a criminal thing. One of our states, South Australia, has got some criminality around prostitution, sex work, but for the rest of Australia, it's all good and well. I mean, like legally, in terms of stigma and society, not so much. Anyway, I before that, I was a very, very successful Lorna Jane store manager in Adelaide, and before that, I was a personal trainer, enduring. I was a group fitness instructor. I used to be a Macca's manager. So this wasn't my life always. It was just things happened, and I ended up finding myself needing to pay for rent and a roof over my children's head and food on the table. So here I became a sex worker. That's stories for another day. Anyway, that all went to shit because nothing good can come of that, and really kind of destroyed my life. I was also in a highly abusive relationship too, actually, but successive. But we've talked about that in a previous episode. So at the end of 2018, I did feel like I was going to end up homeless, but I, at the very last minute, found a place to live with a previous client. I think he thought he was going to get Sky, like in like fishnet and stilettos and shit. What he got was Lisa slopping around in trackies and dirty hair and depressed as shit because I was just it was purely platonic. Like after I never booked with him again. Anyway, so that was a nightmare. And then when that came to an end after 12 months, I really wasn't working at all. No work, no sex work, nothing. And so I had a feeling that I was I was doing my best. I was trying to, because I didn't have any paperwork yet, because I wasn't working. I didn't have any pay slips to apply for rent and to be successful. I had some money, not much, but enough to pay a bond and stuff, but no one would take me on. And I also had court shit going on. Oh my God, my life. That all those charges ended up being dropped, but you know, another day, so many stories. So I had a feeling I was possibly going to end up being homeless. Like that's kind of depressing because, you know, I come from a very wealthy, upper middle class, highly educated academic family. So this was, you know, like my life took some turns, right? So sidebar, when I had this feeling that I was probably going to end up homeless, I was, you know, it was crunch time, and you have to pull out all stops. Is that what you say? I had to try everything. And my father, who had abandoned me, and all my family, my entire world, had abandoned me. What was this? 2019. Like 4 years before. I'm like, and my parents are so wealthy. Oh my God, my parents are millionaires, multi-millionaires. They're separated, but they're individually both. Like my dad. Anyway. So I thought, fuck it. I have to do everything. What if he helps? So I messaged my father for the first time in 5 years and said, hi, Dad, I think I might need your help. And I'm an only child, by the way. It's just me, no other children. He replied, who is this? And I was like, oh. And then I went to reply and he blocked me. So that's cute. This is Mr. Important. He was then, he's not now, but he was the Vice Chancellor of the University of Newcastle. A very important job. He's now sits in Australia for Aussies. He sits on the RSL, which is like our VFW, RSL board of directors or something. So he's a big Mr. Important. Just ask him. So I messaged him and he blocked me. And anyway, so long story short, that wasn't very helpful, and I ended up being homeless. So I packed all my stuff into a storage unit, which was the best I could do, and I had to live in my car. So I would go to the storage unit during the day, spend time with my pets, just potter around there. I had my fridge hooked up. There was electricity. I had a fridge, a microwave, a kettle, so I could, you know, relatively feed myself. I realized that my back seat of my car, the dimensions of the back seat were perfect to fit 70 by 70 centimeters or inches. I don't know what that is. It was centimeters. Anyway, the square cushions from my couch were the perfect size. So I had big foam cushions that I could have a bed. I'm only short, but I could never sleep stretched out for almost a year. And at night, I would hook my black plastic bags up onto cup hooks around the perimeter of my car, drive to a certain destination after washing my teeth, washing my face, take the little dog with me, Ellie. She was almost 17. Say goodnight to the cats, and go off and like sleep in my car. So this was a really tough existence. Yeah, like I had nowhere to shower. I could do like a pommy, you know, I wash under my arms. I used to wash my feet, etc. But you know, you feel dirty and disgusting. You love living in your car, Annie? Are you being facetious or are you being serious? I mean, there's a freedom to it, but there's also the stigma. So many a night I would find myself. There was some pretty hairy situations. Like there was one night in the summer when I hadn't quite got my system worked out, and I had the windows cracked open because it was fucking hot. And then I could hear this guy, a crazy guy, coming through the car park, and he was going around my car, like, and I had the windows cracked up, and I just been quiet, like lying there under my doona, like dying of heat, just trying to be still. I think I used to still have my keys in the front at that time. I had a system after that. Everything was fucking secure as, but he was going around the car and muttering to himself, going, "I'm gonna get you next time, you fucking bitch." He was just in psychosis, but that was a big wake up call. And then there was many a time when people would report me for sleeping in my car, residents and stuff, even though I'd go to like, you know, parks and football fields or, you know, big reserves and things, and like, which you got to, where there's bathrooms as well, where there was maybe a toilet, because otherwise, you know, where do you go to the toilet? And there was times when I would have the cops coming around and knocking on my windows at night, shining torches in, saying, "What's going on in there?" Like, I'm like, fuck. I used to like just be crying, like, leave me alone. I'm trying to be invisible. I'm not bothering anyone. Just let me be. I'm not okay, but you're making it worse. Yeah, you're making it worse. So this was all very tough. I did occasionally, like, I spent about 4 or 5 weeks over at a using friend, a leech, in Adelaide from Melbourne. I drove over because I was going to relocate, and thought I might as well try to get over there to help her get her mother's house for sale. In that time, so many stories. Anyway, that didn't work out. I did all the work for her. I worked like a fucking dog for like 7 weeks straight. Did the work of, like, literally the entire giant house it sold for over $1 million. Thanks, Lisa. No worries. I like helping, you know. And then she stitched me up. She burned me hard. And I've since completely gotten rid of that person out of my life, because ain't nobody got time for that. I'm not here to be used. I'm kind and good and nice. I'm nice until I'm not. Like, fuck that. So in that time also, I did a bit of house sitting within Melbourne, just for a couple of weeks over Christmas, which was helpful because I had somewhere to live over Christmas. But in that time, one of my cats went missing, and so then suddenly I only had one. And then after I came back from Adelaide, so many stories. My little dog died. I was in the town in between Adelaide and Melbourne, and my little dog passed away. So suddenly it was just me and Petey, my little ginger cat. So it was just me and Petey. A lot of trauma. And then I came back to Melbourne, like, forever hoping that, like, I'm a gypsy, mate. I'm a gypsy. I've lived everywhere. I've moved like 19 times in the last 13 years. I think it's more now, actually. Like, full proper moves, interstate, Newcastle to South Australia, South Australia to Melbourne, Melbourne to South Australia, South Australia to Melbourne, Melbourne to Perth, Perth to Echuca, Echuca to Melbourne, and here I am. And in that time, many moves within there, like, I'm a gypsy. So I came back to Melbourne after some time in Bordertown, which is a town midway through between Melbourne and Adelaide. There's a whole lot of stories there. Anyway, so COVID started to get really bad. Yeah, we had in Melbourne what was called stage 4 lockdowns, which meant that as COVID numbers went up, we had progressively higher restrictions in place. And it was like we had curfews that you couldn't drive. I don't know what that was like in the US, but we had curfews where you couldn't be out after, I think it was 8. Mate, I do whatever I want. I was under the radar because I was a non-person. As a homeless person, I was a non-person. Thank you, Frank. And I just did whatever, like, find me. Like, there was no, they weren't, it was, people just were drones. They were just doing what they were told. And it, you know, quite frankly, that's not me. And like, I would come find me. Like, where are they going to find me? My car, I think, was registered. I don't know. Anyway. Oh, no, I don't think so. Ugh, so much trauma in my brain. So when stage 4 lockdowns got really bad, my storage unit, Storage King, which had obviously bathrooms, toilets, sink, running water, everything in stage 4 lockdowns in Melbourne, everything shut down. Nothing was open. They locked the bathrooms. They told me I couldn't be. They were very kind. They knew I was there. They gave me a lot of accommodations for. They knew my plight. I paid my bill, and you know. So thank you, Sarah. That's really kind of you. Thank you, Sarah. I love you. Sarah just bought me some coffees. Mwah. And when they locked it down, suddenly, like, this is horrible. With trigger warning, y'all. Let me see. We got trigger warnings in the chat. Let me see. You put it in the chat. When that happened, I suddenly had no access to running water. Like, even McDonald's didn't have their bathrooms open. I mean, it was hard. And plus I was sleeping in my car, man. What are you going to do? So suddenly I had nowhere to even go to the toilet. So I'm sorry, but like, I had to have a bucket lined with a plastic bag to do all my business. And honestly, the level of dehumanization and shame and social, like, ostracization that I felt at that point, when everybody was already feeling alone, but here was I having to shit in a fucking bucket. Like, are you serious? And that was when and there was an initiative of the government to try and get all homeless people housed and off the streets during that time, because obviously that's a social health risk to have people out and about in the free air. Oh my God, could they catch COVID? Soz. I'm a little bit of a denier about that. No, I'm not, but I know, sorry, I do know that it's very serious. I've never had COVID, 2 vaccines. We'll stay away from that topic. But I was very sus of some of the motivations behind governmental decision making in that time. Thank you, Lissy. So finally I, like, stuck my tail between my legs, put my bucket with the fucking plastic bag away, and contacted like the charitable services. Like, I just couldn't anymore. It was just so distressing. I had no access to running water, not even to fill my drink bottles up. Like, what are you going to do? So I finally got some help, and that was my path to being able to re-enter rental housing, actual having a home, after, I think that was in October of 2020, and I've been homeless since September of 2019. Occasionally house sitting, but for the most part living in my car and in my storage unit. Good times. So the charitable organizations in Melbourne had a great thing where they put you up in a hotel, and then they had these initiatives where they could for indefinitely, and then they had these initiatives where they would pay your bond and moving costs. So they did so many things like that, and actually advocated for me, for homeless people to, if they were wanting to and in a position to, that they could find a place. And I think I was in the hotel for about 4 or 5 weeks. It was an absolute dive. There was drug deals going on either side. I actually found a meth pipe under the under the mattress. I was like, fuck yeah, score. I'm not, like, I couldn't afford meth anymore, but I did finish that, trust me. Full disclosure. And then so I found a place. So having said that, I then moved into this place, and it was great. It was amazing. I had a massive garden. I was getting the yard all prepared to have a vegetable garden because I'm a gardener, and I like, the homeless thing was just not really anything about me, except I ended up there. Like, and it can happen to anyone. And then I broke my freaking ankle, and that spiraled me. That was fun. Still go up on the gutters, up on the ladder, and cleaned out the gutters with my cast on my ankle. Still mowed the lawn. The doctor, when I went to get my cast off, could not believe it. He's like, "What do you mean? When did you?" I'm like, "He goes, when were you walking?" I'm like, 2 days later. Oh lol, sorry. So many funny times in my life. So I decided, because we in Australia, we were able to when we were able to cash in, if you during COVID, you were able to access some of your superannuation, and I had a meager amount of superannuation, maybe 150,000 Australian, which is 110,000 US. It's a pittance, not enough to live on for any length of time. But I cashed in my superannuation a couple of times, much to my horror now, because I'm going to be working till I'm 90. Fuck. Because I don't have anything to fall back on. And my parents have written me out of their will, all of them, to make sure that I will never get a cent of their millions and millions of dollars, because obviously I'm not worthy of any assistance, right? Being facetious. So I decided with some of my superannuation, I paid half my rent. Like, I paid 6 months rent up front. So then my weekly rent amount was half. Yeah. My monthly rent amount was half, because I paid 6 months up front. And I was getting what we call job seeker here, and it was increased during COVID to a very reasonable amount. It went back down again. It's well below the poverty line. And I praise the Lord every day that I am, in the last 3 years, gotten to the point. I've been working now for almost 2 years, and I'm pretty proud of myself. Like, I support myself completely. And you guys, coffees and shit now. Thank you. Yo. But I decided with that superannuation that I would maybe try to make the move back to South Australia to reconnect with my children, to be geographically there, because both of my children live in Adelaide, and my granddaughter, who I've never met, and I didn't get invited to my daughter's wedding. Cute, huh? So I did that, relocated back to Adelaide. Oh my God, the migraines I had, I couldn't work. I had to pull the plug on it, ended up in border town. Long story short, I did end up homeless again. And due to a domestic violence situation, not a romantic relationship, but it was domestic violence. I was sharing a place when I had to leave Adelaide. I had a room in border town, which is border dump. It's the fucking worst place, mate. There's 4,000 people that live there tops, including the surrounds. Like, it's just a dump in the middle of nowhere. And I was living with this old man junkie who used to, again, trigger warning, he used to inject meth. I mean, sure, 70 meth, no worries. And I didn't have any money for meth, so I was like, it was a little bit of FOMO right there, but I was doing it clean. And he just got more and more aggressive, and it got to a point where he came right up in my face and was like, my sons want to get you out of here, yeah? And I'm like, do they? Like, I was already looking for a place to live. I'd already packed up most of my stuff. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be there. Who wants to be somewhere where you don't feel safe? And he was a disgusting pig of an animal. Anyway, so I had to flee within an hour, and I had 2 puppies and 2 cats at that stage. I'd just gotten a little 2 wolfhound Belgian Malinois shepherds, and I had Peter, my little ginger cat, who is still left over from those homeless days, and Timmy, who I've still got. So I got in the car and I fled, and that was one of my most that's crisis. That was tough. I was homeless for about 6 weeks again. In that time, I had I'm lucky to still be alive there. That was a real that was a tough time, because I thought I had to flee and leave all of my belongings, all of my family heirlooms, my original artwork, everything, my memories, my appliances, family photos, my children's toys. So that was good. Anyway, so a friend said, hey, come move to Perth. Why not? And I'm like, oh, I've got nowhere else to go. Why not? And Perth is what is it? Almost 4,000 kilometers. Nick, do the calculations for me. What's that? It's I don't know, thousands and thousands of miles. No, me and math. Anyway, a long way, 24-hour drive, if you drive straight. So I yeah, cool. I raised some money on GoFundMe to get me there, because what am I going to do? I may as well. I'm the gypsy. May as well move. Got over to Perth. That was a nightmare. Worse. Oh my God, worse. The police raided this guy. It's just honestly so many stories. So I ended up coming back to Melbourne, or Echuca, which is on the New South Wales Melbourne Victoria border. In that time, Peter, my cat, died. He got hit by a car. Sorry, again, trigger warning, but both my puppies, Maggie and Miriam, got hit by a car on the highway in one go. So I was alone again, just me and Timmy against the world, on the other side of the country with no money, no reason to even be there. And then, wait, so I started heading, you cannot make this shit up. I started heading back to Melbourne, yeah. I'm like, fuck, whatever. And honestly, the trip to Perth was such a pilgrimage. It changed my life. Even with all of the trauma and the devastation and this and the trigger warning, suicidal ideation and like attempts, like many attempts, true proper attempts. And and then the disappointment of getting there and the upheaval and trauma. Honestly, that drive changed my life. It is an absolutely like spiritual experience, and I'm so grateful. I had moments where I was like, this is amazing. I don't know anybody else, regardless of what I'm going through in my life. Nobody else I know has the opportunity to make this kind of trip all the way across the country, out under the stars. It was just amazing. I got so much out of it, regardless of the trauma. Huge. But on my way back, my car had been studied, like my snail that I'd been living in for like forever, you know, like that was my home. That was everything. That was all I had for a lot of time. Gave up the ghost in this little town called Crystal Brook. I mean, if you thought Bordertown was a dump, no, Crystal Brook. Oh, on a Friday afternoon, the mechanic wouldn't see me till Monday. I had to push my car myself into a spot where I could park for the weekend and just bide my time to the Monday. Oh my God. And then he goes, I can kind of fix it. It cost me like a fair bit of money. I think I borrowed money. But what like, fuck, Lisa, someone help this poor bitch out. Like, God, will it ever end? And the mechanic said, oh, you can probably drive it. It was like, but the transmission was gone. So you can probably drive it. I wouldn't drive very far. I was like, you know what? I'm driving to Echuca, which was another 800 kilometers. So I did. And I kept driving that dumb car until it into the ground, another probably 2,000 Ks. Oh, good times, mate. I'm a phoenix. So all that to say, here I am now, kind of being a little bit successful, pretty positive about life, with a lot of a lot of stuff pre-sex work and pre-homelessness that you would consider to be pretty privileged, pretty like I am privileged. I'm intelligent. I'm well spoken. I'm a fucking sick bitch. No jokes. Well, a little bit. I am strong and powerful, and I'm caring, and I'm funny. I've been through a lot. It hasn't everybody, but none of that really broke me. And here I am now, and it's taken me a long time to. I'm actually gonna cry for a second. Hang on. It took me a long time. Like I've spoken before about shadow work and stuff. Like it took me a long time to. Gee, I didn't see that coming. To feel good about myself, I had to do a lot of work on myself, and back myself because nobody else was backing me. The people have come and gone, and people have helped me along the way. Don't get me wrong. People have helped me along the way, and I will be forever grateful. But they're very transient helpers and friends and support networks. There's nothing long term there. There's nothing consistent, and it's been quite the journey. But I got myself back into the workforce. I'm supporting myself, and mostly doing pretty well. There is some imminent homelessness potentially looming again. Because I don't know, most of you know, I don't know if you guys, some of you know this, but about 2 months ago, anyway, I could talk for hours just on and another thing, lol. But so where I'm living now is an absolute dive. It's a shit show of a fucking private rental agreement, and I've made it my own. And it's been amazing to have somewhere. And I don't ever want to have to move again, regardless of the fact that my landlord is an absolute, like, narcissistic control freak nightmare. And his son's a little monkey midget boy stalker who breaks into my house with the keys. They come into my house. They don't anymore because my dogs don't fuck with my dogs. Like, come at us, bro. But so anyway, he evicted me. Just on a whim, because he didn't like me setting my boundaries and enforcing my boundaries, which were, tell me what the works are going to be done here. They reckon there was going to be renovations. There weren't. And tell me what and when. And I'm happy with you coming in. Just tell me what so I can get the place organized. I can move my plants. I've got a couple, yeah. Move my plants, move my artwork off the walls and get it ready. And he wouldn't. So he evicted me on a whim. So technically, like I haven't started looking for someone to live yet because YouTube star. Priorities, mate. God. And whatever. I'm not going anywhere. The rental market in Australia, but particularly in Melbourne, is absolutely brutal. Last time I was looking, when I ended up having to find this place with a week's notice, because where I was staying before, my best friend gave me a week to get out. Thanks. I had nowhere to go. I'd been looking for 3 months. So I have been busy, Lily. Oh, I'm always positive, Morna. I'm a realist, though. Like, I know, like, it's going to be tough, but I can do it. Like, look what I've done already. That's a piece of piss compared to what I've lived through, and thrived through. So yeah. But that's not going to happen because I've got boundaries now and I back myself. So I've got Kat backstage, I hope. Kat, are you there? And would you like to come in backstage and we can like open this up to a little bit less pity party Lisa and into something maybe a bit more productive? Come on in, Kat. I'll keep rambling until you get backstage. Yeah, like, what are you going to do? Like, people say, oh my God, you're so strong. I can't believe you like survived that. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Actually, there was times when I actually just, all I wanted to do was curl up and just like die and let the dust settle on me, because I could never see a future for myself. I could not see a future for myself. I just couldn't. It wasn't that I was being a nihilist or defeatist, but there was actually nothing there in my mind's eye, and I have got a very good ability to visualize things. I can conjure up flavors and smells in my brain, like anything, and images, whatever. I'm the neurodivergent in me is very good at that stuff, like 10. But I couldn't see a future, and so it's amazing now to not only see a future, but to see a bright future and to be actively steering that ship, where a lot of the time in the past I've done everything in my power, and still, like, it's not like I've been a passive observer in my life journey at all. But sometimes you do everything you can and the universe fucks you over backwards with no lube. So sorry, I'm a really, really classy basic bitch, I told Frank the other day. All right, look, Kat's backstage. So Kat is one of my beautiful moderators. She's also a great friend. Kat is still a social work background, specializing or sort of leaning more towards advocacy for homelessness, particularly in women through who've often come to that point in their life, come to the point in their life where they find themselves homeless. Sorry, I was laughing at the chat. It's not a funny subject, although sometimes you just got to laugh, right? So let me bring Kat up. I'm going to have a quick drink because y'all have talked too much. Hey, Kat.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
I'm amazing. How are you? Thank you for coming on.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me on. You are such an amazing person. I was listening to, everything you shared with your audience tonight. I was on my iPad. That's what happened. I was so into the show that I forgot to go back and check the green room. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're here. We're here. I talked for longer than expected also, so you're here.
Oh, absolutely. No problem. This is your show. I just want to say that you are so brave to talk about the plights that you've been through and the trauma you've been through. And you are a voice for those who they want to be able to share it, but they just can't. A lot of people, especially women who have been through homelessness and domestic violence, they are not extroverts, right? A lot of them are introverts because of all their trauma, and they might have been introverts prior, but they're definitely introverts after all the trauma, and they just can't. And so they need people like you who are willing to come on the air and be on a live stream and talk about your trauma and share everything, the dirty, the good, the bad, the ugly. I have so much respect for you that you're willing to do that.
Thank you. To be honest, when you say extrovert, I know I seem very gregarious and extroverted, and I'm a ham for the camera always. And actually, in social social situations, hard pass. I'm actually a very introverted person, but my autistic lifelong thanks Jen for the coffee. My autistic lifelong masking. I'm only very late diagnosed autistic. It was in 2019 in the light bulb moment for me. So um I've all my life masked and overly been delightful, like I'm a fucking delight, yeah. But inside all I want to do is like, well, not so much these days. I think I've kind of got to a self actualization point where I'm like, you know what, fuck the fucking haters, and I'm me, and I think I'm amazing, and if you don't, well, you can suck my dick. So I'm not really an extrovert, but it seems like it. So but yes, a voice. This is why we're here. um so you've worked with a lot of women who have spent their time being under the influence of coercive control,
Yes.
domestic abuse, financial control, a very big one in homelessness, because if you have no ability to save money within that relationship, how can you like emancipate yourself from that situation?
Exactly. And I've seen, before I was involved with social work, I was a police officer. So I saw a lot of homelessness and domestic violence via that career. And that was frustrating because the amount of time that you get to spend with the person who is currently experiencing homelessness that you are now interacting with, and or the call to a domestic violence situation, to a home where there's currently domestic violence going on, the amount of time that I got to spend with those individuals was very short. I had a role to play. I had to play it. And for me, that was always very frustrating because internally I was always a social worker. I think my mom thinks I was born a social worker. I was doing social work at age 5, according to my mother. So the law enforcement years held a lot of frustration for me because I wanted to be able to do more. I wanted to help more. And the social work component, the experiences I've had have been not as long because it's been my second career and it's been a very short career, but I am still finding a lot of frustration. And the frustration for me is involved in the repetitiveness of individuals who continue to be homeless, and there's no help for them. There's not
It's
enough shelters.
such
They're
it's a
overcrowded.
vicious cycle.
Yes,
Absolutely.
it's this
So
cycle
hard.
circle, and it's frustrating. That's why the more we can hop on the air and talk about it, we can get more people talking about it, then we can find solutions, because we have to work as a team. Not one person can solve homelessness. Not one person can solve the domestic violence laws, and why so many women do not leave their abusers, because many of them have nowhere to go. They have children. They're afraid that they'll lose custody of their children. The laws and the courts do not support them. So they remain in these situations and allow these partners to continue to abuse them. So there's so much frustration involved in both of these incredibly important social topics, which, believe it or not, you see every day. Everybody sees at least one homeless person once a day, if not more than that, right? And most of us know someone who either was in a domestic violence relationship or currently is. We may just not know it. 1 in 3 women in their lifetime will be in a domestic violence situation.
It's interesting when you said about the frustration you felt as a like a crisis point intermediary, like intervener as a police officer. I know when I was talking about how I finally went to the charitable organisations to get assistance to pull me out of that situation, and I had an amazing sort of crisis person advocate helping me, and it was for the first few days, and I don't remember if she actually identified herself as being that, but when my main crisis point was over and the wheels were in motion, she handed me off to someone, a more long-term caseworker, and the way it almost broke me again. I just felt like another person like just tossing me aside. It wasn't that at all, but psychologically, from the homeless person point of view, it was damaging. It was highly confusing and yeah, frustrating to be handed on. And I intellectually and objectively I knew why, but I couldn't help how it made me feel after being so unseen and so unimportant. It made me feel like I was unimportant, but obviously not. So it's interesting
That's
that
an amazing point that you're making, because it's about how you feel. It is about how you feel. We should always be meeting people where they're at. It's not about how we look at something or how it might make us feel, because we're all different. And how I might feel about something and how you might feel about it might not be the same, but we have to meet each other where we're at and try to understand each other. That is called empathy. And that is one of the problems I feel right now in America and in the world. And probably, I don't know, you can let me know how, what Australians, you know, it just feels to me like we're losing empathy. Like people are, I think they're tired, and I think they feel beat up with all the social problems we have in the world. And so, you know, empathy is so important, especially if you're going to work in the field where you're working with homelessness or domestic violence. You have to, if you don't feel that you were born, you know, you are born with a certain amount of empathy. There's been a lot of misnomers out there that you're not born with empathy, or people say, yes, you are. You are born with empathy. That's a scientific fact. But you have to nurture it. It's like everything. You can't just say, oh, I've got empathy. No, you need to really nurture it and look at yourself in the mirror every day and remind yourself, you know, who am I going to be encountering today? Who am I going to run across? What's my empathy level, right? And it's very different than sympathy. Sympathy is not the same emotion as empathy. And a lot of people get those confused, or they don't know the difference. And there is a big difference.
I think also empathy can grow, well, does grow from trauma also, and also brain makeup. I think you're born with it. I think you also that divergence from trauma, whether you go empath or narcissist, is a very big fork in the road for people, what you choose to do with that. I know empathy is different to being an empath, but it's under the same umbrella. What was I going to say? I did think of something. So, oh no. It's gone. I thought
I love brain fog. I just love brain fog. I have a question for you. So during the time that you were homeless, the first time, what resources did you have at your avail? Because there's so many homeless people, and they tell me when I meet them, like now I do some volunteer work where I live here in Florida, and I'm constantly being told the homeless shelters are full. They tell me that I can only stay for a week, and then they're going to have to, you know, kick me out basically, and then I'm back homeless. So I don't even bother to go to the shelter, because why would I get cozy and feel safe there to suddenly have to be exited out in a week to 2 weeks? So I'm just curious, in Australia, are you having the same problem that we're having here in America, where we have such a shortage of homeless shelters, and especially for victims of domestic violence?
I think my problems were probably threefold. Because I had a car, they considered me to have options, which is ridiculous. Because I had pets, it made it very hard. Because I wasn't a direct a person who was directly right there and then experiencing domestic violence situation. I wasn't escaping from imminent danger. And probably the biggest problem, and it's been a problem for me my whole life, is because I present so well and I'm articulate and I don't fit the stereotype of what a homeless person would look like or sound like, or what they would say. I wasn't taken seriously in my predicament, and I just fell through the cracks in terms of being pigeonholed in and then also having, as per always in my life, I ended up being in the kind of too hard basket, where the things about me made me too hard to deal with, and so I just and you give up pretty quickly. Like it's like these people, those services, the charitable organizations are doing their best with the resources that they have, but they are limited. They are limited, and so I understood, like intellectually, that I unfortunately I didn't meet, or I exceeded the criteria, or whatever, you know, like I just didn't fit into the we can help you box until it got to that very dire stage where I just couldn't. It was just devastating. I felt like an animal. I already felt like trying to fly under the radar, but to suddenly, like, to literally have nowhere to have basic human needs, water, like sanitary conditions. Yeah. So, but the government threw a lot of money during that peak COVID time with the Victorian government. I think it was the federal government put a lot of money and resources into doing what they could to help people, homeless people, at least temporarily. But there were permanent, steps that you could take if you wanted to.
you said something really interesting about the piece about owning a vehicle. And what is so hypocritical about that is that the police, you can't just park your car anywhere. You're not
Yep.
allowed to live in your car. That is against the law in almost every state in the United States. And you are not allowed to even sleep in your car. And there's many places. I wish I could read the chat. I'm so used to being your moderator. I feel like I am dissing the chat tonight. I
You
can't
can
wait to get
see.
back in the chat.
You should be able to see it up the top under our screen. There's 3 things. There should think that, I don't know where it is as a guest anywhere actually, but there is a thing where you can go to comments and you can
I
see
was
the
afraid to touch anything since I'm new at this, joining you. So that's why I didn't even attempt to do that. But I definitely want to read the chat. And I do want to let people know that I would love questions. If you have any questions for me, please give them to Lisa. She can email them to me. I will answer them. I love it when you raise your voice. I love it when you want to contribute, because we can sit up here, Lisa and I, we could probably talk for 9 hours. There is so much to talk about with the intersection, because the intersection of homelessness and domestic violence is a very complicated web. And I don't want to talk at you. I want you to join in. I want you to tell me your experiences. And so I hope that Lisa and I can get together again, and we could even do like a call-in. What do you think, Lisa? Like, I'd love for people to call in and tell us your experience, in like a 60-second, talk, and then we'll answer your questions. And I just want it to be a dialogue.
Absolutely. I will have to work on my technical setup to do a call in. Even if I get a burner phone, and then I can butt dial people. I can get a burner phone. We can probably
work on mine. I just have an issue right now with my Ethernet, but I'm pretty much organized on the actual StreamYard on my computer. But my Ethernet is not good for some reason. That's why I didn't use it tonight. I wanted to make sure I could come on and speak with you. But I wanted to tell you something. You started at the beginning and you said, it's important to have, you said love, and you were talking about your parents, and I am so incredibly sorry, because you are a dear. And if you were my daughter, I would never in a million years not speak to you. I wouldn't care what you did for a living. You were my child. I wouldn't care how you raised money or how you made money. You are a smart, intelligent woman, and don't you ever forget that. And I would adopt you if you would let me. I just think you're a joy, and you are giving so much joy to your subscribers and your friends, and your subscribers are your friends now too, because they love to, you're a voice. You know how powerful that is. It's so powerful to be a voice. And when you said love, and then I actually put a meme up today. I ran across an independent filmmaker. When I lived in LA, I was fortunate enough to meet some really interesting people. I went back to grad school when I was 53. My kids were growing. I was bored. I was tired of being retired. And I said, you know what? I have more to learn. My brain can still learn. I'm going to go to grad school. So I applied to USC, my dream school, and not to diss my University of Wisconsin, where I did my undergrad, but USC was my dream school. The Trojans, fight on if anybody knows about USC Trojans. And I moved to LA with my pit bull Zelda and my 4 cats. And I lived in a 600 square foot efficiency for a ridiculous amount of money. And I met some of the most amazing people. I met people that were homeless. I met people that used to be homeless, that were struggling. And I myself was struggling, try to go to grad school at 53 and live in this small, tiny little space with a dog and 4 cats. And I met some independent filmmakers, and it was really interesting. And one of them I found today on Twitter, and I was so excited. So I followed him, and then he put up some movie that he recently did about homelessness, and I'm going to try to connect the two of you. And I put up a meme today about the 4 important aspects of life, which are love, food, housing, and water. At the end of the day, get rid of jewelry, get rid of makeup. And Lisa, you don't need this. I have blonde, red eyebrows. You are beautiful, but I know vanity. We could have a whole live session about vanity and how women are held to a higher standard than men. Men don't wear makeup. I could go off. Anyway, back to the movie. Love, food, housing, water. Those are really, and then for me, pets, but that's it.
But that's love. That's love, isn't it?
Love, yes. And if you lose one of those, right? If you lose love, if you lose food, if you lose housing, if you lose water, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a mental health issue. You're going to get depressed. You're going to have anxiety. So we don't need fancy cars. We don't need fancy houses. We don't need jewelry. We don't need these are the four, right? And we need to supply those four to people that are homeless and women of domestic violence, because they don't have love. They have been an object. They have been a possession of another human, which is completely wrong and unethical, right? So those of us that are over that, are beyond that, and are moving on with our lives, we have to stay focused and help people that are homeless and experiencing domestic violence get those four things back, because that's what we need.
Absolutely. And for me, like in that moment when I got to the point where I already had no love and no one loved me, and that was one of the things that used to really sort of play on my mind, was the fact that nobody loved me. Like, nobody in the world loved me. And 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 I had nobody, no support network. And I used to start to think that if there was a period of time where, had I died, either had I passed away, that nobody would have known, nobody would have come to my funeral, and I would have ended up in a pauper's grave. So I was like rock bottom, and then to suddenly have no shelter.
Right.
And then when the COVID thing happened, and I suddenly had no access to water, that
Right.
was that I suddenly had nothing except myself and my like to have to call. And I'm a proud person, and I was, but you also get conditioned to I'd been conditioned to be as invisible as possible, because
Right.
that's what you have to do when you're homeless. So that was a really, like, so many times in my life I've had probably three of those four things. Maybe not the food thing. I always managed to find food. But there have been times when I've had to really be very frugal with my food, because I was choosing where my funds went, and it wasn't to food.
Right.
Chemical
I met
substance.
someone just a couple weeks ago, actually, just haphazardly. I was at a red light turning left, and actually it was the day when I went to film. So I live near a couple bridges. I live near the Intercoastal Waterway. I'm near the Atlantic Ocean. And I was really upset. And you and I may have to do another live about this, because I have a lot to say about Karen Reed and John O'Keefe, by the way. And bless his heart up in heaven, because he did not deserve that. He was a good man, a good police officer. And I wanted to test that whole ridiculous phone nonsense. So I was going to go over the bridge, and I was going to prove to all the anti-Karen readers that my iPhone is not going to record me going over a bridge. So I was going to completely dismantle. And trust me, as a former law enforcement, I would love to call that. Is he a lieutenant? Do you remember? Was he the lieutenant or was he the sergeant? I want to call him and say,
Garino,
what do
sergeant.
you do? Yeah. What are you doing on the stand telling people that their iPhones record going over hills? That's totally ridiculous. It's not true. So I was on my way to go film that. And I ran into this gentleman that I had helped out before, just with some food. And he was right there on the corner, and he had his sign, and I recognized him. So I pulled over where it was safe, and I waved, and he remembered me. And I said, are you still, you didn't get any help? You're still in the street? And he said, I tried. He said, I had an apartment for all of a hot minute. I got a job. And then they ran my background check. After they hired him, they ran a background check. And because he had one possession of marijuana, they fired him.
Ugh.
And I was I felt heartbroken for him, because he wants to work. And the stereotype that the homeless don't want to work is insane. That is absolutely wrong. And like I said, when I was in LA, I was down on what they call Skid Row, which I don't like using that, because I don't like defaming people. This is a homeless encampment down in LA. If you've been to LA, you know what I'm talking about. Or if you're from California, I met so many amazing people there. I met so many amazing people that they were literally a paycheck away from homelessness, and they lost their job. I have read articles from professors that would tell me that that's not true, that none of us are a paycheck away from homelessness. And that is not true at all.
My entire life is.
Yes, most of us are, because I would love to know this. So chat, if you can let Lisa, send an email, or however you reach out to Lisa. Who has 3 months in a savings account right now of rent and utilities and water and lights and food and car payment and car insurance? I'm telling you, 80% of America does not have that. So there is no way that we are not, most of us, except for probably the 1 and the 2 and the 3 percenters, a paycheck away from homelessness. Absolutely, we are. And so I met so many amazing people when I was on Skid Row helping and working there. And it just vibed me up and it jazzed me up to want to do more and be a voice for people that are going through such terrible times. And you experienced it. So you are on the boots on the ground, because you know exactly what it was like.
And you know, I've also, like, for me, money is an easy come, easy go thing. And I've always been someone who, when I had money, I've always, like, I've loaned out money to people who maybe I couldn't help them with what they were going through psychologically or emotionally or in their private lives. But if money was going to help them in one part of the stress of their lives, I would help them out. And and um, so it's hard. It's been hard for me when people did help me out financially, when, like, for example, when I was stranded in that little town called Crystal Brook when my car died. Oh my God. And so people
You
have
are
helped.
so brave.
Yeah. The stories, man, we could talk for literally 24 hours nonstop. But so now, like, and I used to, before I lived through all this, I used to, when people were like begging on the street, you know, with a little thing, a towel out on the floor, and they were sitting there with a sign, I used to be like, oh my God, like, I'd walk past with actually, shamefully, not any real empathy. My mindset was, get a job, stop begging, this is not cool. Now I go out of my way to not only flick some money in there, like, if I try to have a $5 note, or, you know, which is, it's more than most people give them,
Right.
and I say, like, I go and say, have a good day, and like, warmly will greet them, because I know how people, when you're homeless and when you're in a plight like that, people don't want to look at you because it's terrifying to them. It's too confronting to think that, like, I don't think the people genuinely want to even consider the fact that they could be that person,
Right.
and not through any drug abuse or gambling addiction. Just because life is expensive, most people aren't in a position to be financially or, like, logistically prepared for something imminent happening out of the blue. And so I just don't think that people are willing to even open their minds to it, because it's terrifying. And that's why I want to have these conversations, because it is terrifying. But how about we be a bit more empathetic? How about we look, we see, and we hear those people, we care, we show them we care. And honestly, when someone does a small little thing for you, like, when I had a massive, so I one of my first few nights of being living in my car, and I had no Ventolin. I'm asthmatic, so a puffer inhaler. And I started having, it was springtime, and the pollens were up and about. I had my cats in the car with me, which I hadn't been, it was like, literally, they were long-haired cats. And so in a house it was one thing, but to have them, everybody, like, around, and my little dog, and I suddenly started having an asthma attack, and I had to call the ambulance. And I was on a healthcare card, so there was no cost to me. We have a very good health system in Australia. They just, when you're a beneficiary of government, like, allowance, you know, income, whatever, job seeker, you don't have to pay. So they came, and they were so kind, and they were so lovely, and of course I had no one to talk to, and I'm Lisa, just don't tell anybody. Like, there's no filter for me. If you ask, I'll probably tell you if you don't ask. And then they got me all good, and I could breathe properly, and they gave me an inhaler, and I went back to my car, and they said, like, to take care of yourself. I was in a car park somewhere. And then a couple of minutes later, one of the Ambo's paramedics came and knocked on my window of my car, and they had a little post-it note. I'm going to cry. And a $50 note. And like that was just, like, so amazing to me, because I was in such a predicament. It was so fresh, coming to terms with the fact that, fuck, I was homeless.
Right.
And these two Ambos who didn't know me from a bar of soap, like, and didn't owe me anything. They'd already been kind in saving my life, you know, I guess that's their job. But they wrote a little note, and they just said, Lisa, look after yourself, and, like, have this money. Like, those, like, that $50 was huge. Like, that's huge. But so, if you can do anything kind for someone who's clearly going through it, honestly, like, even now, see how emotional I am about it now. Like, that was 6 years ago. It just was so special to me. So yeah, it's really important.
That's a great story. I love the way you put your stories and make them relatable to people. And I almost feel like I was there with you. Like when you tell your stories, I feel like I'm there with you. And it's really great. I think your live shows are fantastic. I'm so fortunate that I met you and that you asked me to mod for you. I'm so fortunate for that. And I want to share before I know Turtle Aiden has his show at 9, right? At 9 Eastern. But I wanted to tell you, when I first met you, I think we were both in either Aiden's chat or maybe Mazza Media. I know it was one of the chats, and I saw Miss Shorty with the roller coaster, and I'm like, I want to meet her. And I'm very outgoing that way. I'm an extrovert. So if I want to meet someone, like, I'm going to meet him. Like when I first, I just felt akin to you for some reason. So I think I sent you a private a direct message. We both have our DMs on Twitter.
Yep.
And you had been talking about this landlord of yours, and it really upset me. So I wrote you a DM and I said, this really upsets me. My first career was a property manager, and nobody should ever treat their residents that way. I mean, you are paying rent to live in someone else's house. They are benefiting from you. And
cash. I pay cash too. Cash.
Right.
Not tax-free money.
And I remember sending you the message, and that's how we met. And then from there, my first, I'd been following the Karen Reed story for quite a long time. And then I came upon Turtle Boy, which was quite an education, I'll have to say. So first of all, he's an amazing journalist. Independent journalists are too far and few between. So the fact that what he has done for that case, and I'm hoping that I hope he digs into another case, because there are a lot of things going on right now in America that involve police corruption, dirty cops, need I say, because I was one. There's good cops. There's so many good cops, but there's dirty cops out there, and they need to be stopped. They need to be fired. They need to have their license stripped. The Sandra Birchmore situation is absolutely disgusting, and I definitely want to chat with you a little bit about that. I have some ideas how we could possibly help. There's some other domestic violence murders that have taken place in the last 2 years that I have been following and looking into. Turtle Boy's amazing. The things he's done as an independent journalist are amazing. I'm not a big swear word user. You and I have chatted about that. I have never, and chat, you're going to laugh. Don't laugh at me too hard, but I have never used the C word. It has never come out of my mouth in my whole life.
Me either.
I was born in 1963. You guys can do the math. My generation, women, in fact, my ex-husband called me that name. So for me, that name is triggering. So when I went on Turtle Boy's show for the first time, and he kept saying the C word, I'm like, okay, I'm out of here. And so I didn't come back for a few weeks. And then I started going on some of the other YouTubers that I really like The Glare and LTL Media and Mazza and the Young Jerks. And I mean, they're all super interesting to listen to, and especially about the Karen Reed story. But I couldn't handle the C word. But then I thought, no, I'm a journalist. My first degree is in journalism. I have to go back and listen to Turtle Boy, to Aiden. He's so knowledgeable. He knows this case inside and out. And I'll just have to deal with it. Well, one night there was a lot of C wording going on. So I wrote in the chat box and I said something to the effect of, can we tone down the C word for all of my generation? Is that okay? And it obviously wasn't okay, because I got some backlash. A couple people hit me hard in the chat. And I think a couple people called me a snowflake, or you must be a liberal, or, so then I wrote back, don't bring politics into this. Am I a liberal? Absolutely. Do I like to debate conservatives? Absolutely. Do I still respect conservatives? Yes. But don't call me a liberal, because that's not my identity. First of all, I'm a mother. I have 2 sons. I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. I'm a friend. And so I got used to the C word. I still can't say it, guys. I'm sorry. Maybe someday. Maybe
No,
someday.
I love it. You keep your classiness. I'm no classy, but you be classy. We need some class in this game.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. I feel like there's so much to say about domestic violence, and
we'll do this again.
I will be glad to, and I would be happy to anytime.
Thank you so much, Kat. So we'll let everybody go and watch Aiden, me included, Lily included.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, moms. I know you were doing a great job without me.
Of course, but we love you. So I will say goodbye, and I'll say goodbye to everyone. You want to hop out for us, please, Kat, and I'll talk to you off screen.
Absolutely. Tell me how to hop out, and I will.
Okay, wait, I can do it for you. So you go. You just actually, I don't even know. There you go. Oh, rude. I just tapped her out. Thank you, everybody. Oh my goodness. thank you so much for being here. I'm sorry it was a short one, but we'll absolutely go back to that one because obviously there is a lot more to say. Kat's amazing. I think that we've got some big conversations to be had here. So go and do your Turtle Boy thing. I'll be there too. I probably won't get in the chat because slow mode kills me there. Next week, I'll be on Tommy CPU tomorrow morning at 9, your time. Me, 11 o'clock at night. So that's fun with Boston Mike. So come and watch that. And then next week, I've got a very amazing couple of guests, Frank and Jim Zell, who are going to talk about some pretty amazing revelations and research they've done about the JonBenet Ramsey case. For the last 27 years, not the same old stuff we've always heard. The old the theories. We're not going to be doing that. It's new, and they've got receipts. So put that in your diary for Friday night at 8 Eastern time, US people. Then next Saturday, Lily and I and Nurse Kim and Sean McDonough and Mazza are going to be on Calling All Beings, another roundtable discussion. So that's very exciting. And I probably will schedule something else in there as well because I don't want to leave it too long between these Let's Talk episodes. So let me just go through the super chats again. My newest friend and the supreme researcher, Frank Zell from New York. He's a twin, an identical twin. $10. Thank you, Frank. You're the best. Lissy, thank you so much for your super chat and your kind words. Nick, my man, my wingman, my tire pumper, thank you so much. And Miss Lily, True Crime Kangaroo, thank you, gorgeous. And thank you for yesterday. It was so much fun. And wow, I was exhausted after that. 24 hours of hectic, mental everything, and we did it. Amazing. So, y'all, let's go and be turtle riders, turtle roos, and don't forget to hit like, share this out, tell your friends, and drop a comment in the comments after we finish going live so that we can get it out into the algorithm. Mwah! I love you. Thanks, shorties. Love your faces. Mwah!